Hi everyone, continuing on with my recommendations for a 2-week film festival of 1999 films, the best that 1999 has to offer. We left off with the Best Picture winner, American Beauty, a drama, kind of dark comedy, whatever. We're moving on to a supernatural film called Stir of Echoes, based on a novel, I believe, adapted and directed by David Koepp, who did Secret Window with Johnny Depp, a Stephen King adaptation. This one stars Kevin Bacon as a telephone repair person in Chicago who lives in a house with his wife Catherine Erb, who was in Law & Order Criminal Intent with Vincent D'Onofrio, and their young son. And their son has been communicating with a ghost, perhaps, the ghost of a girl, maybe. And after Kevin Bacon agrees to be hypnotized by his sister, Ileana Douglas, he ends up starting to see the ghost as well, only not as clearly. And he doesn't understand what the ghost wants, but eventually he decides that she does want something and that he needs to do it for her, or else she won't leave him alone. Of course, there was another movie about talking to ghosts that came out that year called The Sixth Sense, and while I enjoy aspects of that movie, I don't like it quite as much as Stir of Echoes. This is a really good supernatural film, and it's great. Also, they live in Chicago, so there's a lot of Chicago locations there. I think they go to Wrigley Field at some point. I can't remember exactly. It's been a few years since I've seen it, but I have very fond memories of this film, and I'm a little disappointed in myself for not seeing it in the theater. I would have enjoyed that very much. The next movie I'd like to talk about is Mystery Men, which is a very wacky comedy based on a comic book series, and was directed by Kinka Usher, except I'm not really sure what else Kinka Usher has done exactly. Maybe a few of the... I really don't know. Anyway, the only complaint that I have about the movie is that Kinka Usher tends to use fisheye lenses a little bit too much. But aside from that, it's a really, really terrific comedy about a bunch of superhero wannabes in a made-up town called Champion City, who want to emulate their hero, Captain Amazing, who's played by Greg Kinnear, but they don't really have the skills or the resources to really fight criminals the way that he does. The team of friends is basically led by Ben Stiller, William H. Macy, and Hank Azaria, and when Captain Amazing goes missing and they suspect that the local bad guy, Casanova Frankenstein, who's played by Jeffrey Rush, is responsible, they decide to recruit a bunch of other people to join in their quest to save him, at which point you have a bunch of scenes with them interviewing a bunch of other superhero wannabes, and they're great. Eventually they settle on Janeane Garofalo and a young kid, I can't remember the name of this guy, but he plays Invisible Boy. And they get some mentoring from Wes Studi, who's another sort of superhero type, and they get some cool gadgets to use from a crazy scientist played by Tom Waits, exactly, and so they go out and try and save Captain Amazing with their own little know-how and not very skilled fighting technique. It's a terrific movie, really, really funny, great costumes and production design. It's just a fun movie overall. Then I'd like to talk about The Insider. The Insider is a drama based on the true story of Jeffrey Wigand, who is a scientist and tobacco company employee, who is let go from his job, and so he decides to talk about all the sort of nefarious ways that a company like that gets you hooked on cigarettes and keeps you hooked. And so he does an interview with 60 Minutes, and the producer on that show is played by Al Pacino. Jeffrey Wigand is played by Russell Crowe. This movie got some nominations, but didn't really win anything. But I think it's definitely one of Michael Mann's best films, and one of the best movies to come out that year. Yeah, really would have been pleased to see Michael Mann win Best Director for this over Sam Mendes for American Beauty. As much as I like American Beauty, as fun as that movie is, it would have been great to see Michael Mann win for this one, because it's really, really terrific drama. And it also, like a lot of Michael Mann movies, has a great ensemble cast as well of supporting actors who are really terrific. Christopher Plummer plays Mike Wallace. He's really good in it. Next I'd like to talk about The Iron Giant, which is an animated movie from Brad Bird, who also did, of course, The Incredibles and Ratatouille, and has gone on to do live-action movies like Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol and Tomorrowland, which is coming out this summer. He is a terrific, terrific, terrific director, and this is another great film of his. The Iron Giant is mostly hand-drawn, but has some CGI in it, and was basically my favorite movie to come out in 1999. The main character is a kid named Hogarth, who's living in a small town in the 50s with his single mom, who's voiced by Jennifer Aniston, and he comes across a gigantic 100-foot tall robot from space, who's voiced by Vin Diesel, and he makes friends with it, and he teaches him to behave and to not destroy things when he plays with them, and to hide, and he tries to hide him from the government agent, who's voiced by Christopher McDonald, is looking for the giant robot hiding somewhere in this little town. Really, really terrific movie, kind of emotional as well, yeah, just great stuff overall. Really, really great animated film. Then there's Steven Soderbergh's follow-up to Out of Sight, which came out the previous year. It's called The Limey. Didn't get nearly as much attention as Out of Sight, and Out of Sight really wasn't a hit or anything like that, but it's the thing that basically got him a lot of really, really great opportunities to work with terrific groups of actors for subsequent projects that got him a lot of Oscar nominations. You know, some big box office success as well. The Limey is a much more low-profile movie, but it's very, very admirable. The main character is played by Terence Stamp. He is an ex-con from England who has come to America, and he's looking for the person he feels is responsible for the death of his daughter. Melissa George played Terence Stamp's daughter, but it's kind of a small part. She really doesn't have any dialogue that made it into the finished movie. The more important characters are Terry Valentine, who is a record company executive, who is played by, which of the Carradines is it? Darn it. No, sorry, Peter Fonda. I'm sorry, not Carradine, Peter Fonda, right. And Leslie Ann Warren plays a friend of Terence Stamp's daughter, who basically tells him a little bit about her life in Los Angeles when she moved here. And Louis Guzman is also in the movie, another guy helping out Terence Stamp gather information, who knew his daughter as well. Louis Guzman's a terrific actor. He's really funny in a lot of the stuff that he's in, and he had kind of smaller parts in Out of Sight and Traffic. But he's got a pretty big part in this movie, which is great. The most noteworthy thing about The Limey is the way that it's edited. It's very, very surreal, and there's lots of jumping back and forth in time. And I get the impression that Soderbergh shot a lot of different conversations in multiple locations and then cut them together sort of arbitrarily. Makes for a very surreal experience. And it seems almost like a sort of a stream of consciousness experience. Like Terence Stamp's actually just sort of, his character's remembering everything that happens after it happened. That's alluded to in the end, really. Yeah, terrific movie. Also, Nicky Katt, who's been in a few other Soderbergh films and had like probably the best moment in all of Sin City. He's in this as well, and he's great. Nicky Katt is always really great in whatever he does. And next film I'd like to talk about is Being John Malkovich, which was written by the guy who did Eternal Sunshine, Charlie Kaufman, right? Charlie Kaufman, and was directed by Spike Jonze. And this was the first feature film that Spike Jonze made after making lots and lots of very memorable music videos and commercials. The main character of the story is played by John Cusack. He's a guy working in a miserable, dingy little office, and he discovers in one corner of the place that he works a portal, which when he crawls through it takes him inside the brain and mind of the actor John Malkovich. John Malkovich plays himself in the movie. If you're not familiar with him, of course, he played the assassin in The Line of Fire, the Clint Eastwood film. Anyway, he plays himself as an actor who's working in New York theater, and so once John Cusack experiences this, he's able to inhabit his mind and see everything that he sees and experience everything that he does for 15 minutes. He starts charging people money to come in and do it for themselves and making a little extra cash on the side. Crazy, crazy, crazy concept, but a really, really fun movie. When I read about this and saw a couple of clips, I thought, okay, I don't want to know anything more about it until I see it, and that was a very good choice. Catherine Keener and Cameron Diaz are also in the movie. They're really good in it. Cameron Diaz plays a very different kind of character from the types that she normally plays. But yeah, definitely a really good one. And finally, the last movie I want to talk about from 1999 is called The Talented Mr. Ripley. It was directed by Anthony Minghella, who prior to this did the Best Picture winner, The English Patient. Yes, The English Patient. which I wasn't all that crazy about, but this movie I like quite a lot. It's adapted from a novel by Patricia Highsmith about this character, Tom Ripley, who's been in a bunch of those novels by that author. He's played by Matt Damon in the movie, and he is recruited by a wealthy gentleman to track down his son, who's overseas in Europe somewhere, living the high life and sort of really out of touch with his family. And when he goes over there, he sort of pals around with the son, who's played by Jude Law, rather than inform on him to his father. Gwyneth Paltrow plays his girlfriend, the son's girlfriend, and the three of them just sort of spend a lot of time hanging out. But the Tom Ripley is a bit of a scam artist, and he gets himself into quite a lot of trouble at some point in the film. And it's one of those really great stories where the main character misses getting into serious trouble by a hair over and over and over again. It's very, very clever the way it's written. It also has a killer ending. Really, really killer ending. I was just sort of devastated by this ending. Not like the way I was with Seven, but still, it's a really, really very, tragic ending, I guess you could say. But sort of, kind of like karma catching up with the main character. Anyway, I don't want to go into it, but really, really good. And that is my, those are my selections for the 1999 two-week film festival that I've sort of cobbled together for you. I hope that some of these movies you like if you haven't seen them and choose to. And I appreciate comments, of course. I really like getting comments on these videos very much. And if you missed my previous video on 1999, which is another 7 films from that year that I really like, there's a link in the description to the playlist that I'm building that has all the videos that I've done so far, so you can check that out if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again real soon with the year 2000. Later.